class. So today our discussion was in reference to the lecture given at MIT. This lecture taught me a couple new things that I'd never considered before about social movements. So number one, the lecturer discussed the blurry line that is in between social movements and interest groups. So he discussed that interest groups are much more reluctant to change, and they're also a little bit more focused on implementing policy directly. So they're more interested in that policy making, whereas social movements are focused on creating this common salience among the public and among policymakers. So in that way, they're influencing change. So the paths taken there are just a little bit different, whereas they both have the same end goal, they just take a different approach. The other thing that I learned was that social movements can be indirect or direct with their movements. So when they go indirectly, this is whenever they're using a lobbyist, which I thought this was a really interesting idea anyways, because when you think of a lobbyist, you think of one person. And typically, I don't know if I'm the only person who thinks this, but lobbyists, you picture a big business behind the lobbyist who's pulling the strings. So I think that that might have something to do with the political state that we're in now. A lot of people get a bad connotation, bad taste in their mouth from the idea of a lobbyist. Thought this was interesting to see them in a different light and see that they can be having good interest for the public and not just for whatever big corporation is putting money in their pocket. And then as far as directly goes, that would have to do with the protests, the marches that we see. So I think that this was interesting just because you think of social movements and you do think of those marches. You don't think of one person indirectly influencing policy. So overall, this MIT lecture was really interesting, taught us a lot about, how those two options of social movements and interest groups go together, which one could be most effective, and I also enjoyed hearing some of his examples of the different groups and seeing how they differed on their paths, and just realizing what worked and what didn't and why. So thank you for listening.